Imagine yourself sailing across the endless Atlantic Ocean of the 19th century. The horizon stretches forever, a grey line where the sky touches the sea. The waves rise and fall like the breath of some giant creature, and the wooden timbers of the ship groan with every movement. In those days, the ocean was not just a route of trade. It was a living force, mysterious, powerful, and feared. Ships carried more than cargo. They carried stories, hopes, superstitions, and sometimes unspeakable tragedies. Among these vessels was a sturdy brigantine first built in 1861. She was christened the Amazon, and from the very beginning she seemed destined for misfortune. On her maiden voyage, her captain suddenly fell ill and died. Not long after, she collided with another ship in the English Channel. Later, she even caught fire in a dockyard. These accidents were enough for sailors to whisper that the ship was cursed. Seamen are deeply superstitious, and a ship with such a beginning was often seen as dangerous. By the time she was renamed Mary Celeste, the whispers had already grown into dark rumors that would one day echo in every corner of the world. The Mary Celeste was not a large ship, but she was strong, built to endure long journeys through the violent moods of the Atlantic. In November of 1872, she stood proudly in New York Harbor, ready for a voyage to Genoa, Italy. Her cargo, nearly 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. Her captain, Benjamin Briggs, a man known for his discipline, piety, and good judgment. Captain Briggs was no ordinary sailor. He came from a respected family of seafarers in Massachusetts, a man of strong faith and steady character. He wrote lovingly to his mother before departure, assuring her of his confidence in the voyage. His wife, Sarah, joined him on this journey, bringing along their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. For Briggs, this was not just business. It was a family voyage, a chance to sail the seas together. His crew consisted of 7 experienced sailors, handpicked for their skill and reliability. Everything about this mission seemed secure, and yet the ocean is never predictable. As the Mary Celeste left New York on November 7, 1872, the weather was cold, the skies restless. The sails caught the Atlantic winds, and the ship began her journey across waters that had swallowed countless souls before. Life on board settled into routine. The captain kept meticulous records, the crew maintained their duties, and little Sophia wandered the decks, her laughter a rare sound in the lonely expanse of the sea. The cargo hold remained sealed, heavy with its dangerous load of alcohol, but all seemed well. Weeks later, on December 4, 1872, the British brig Dei Gratia spotted a ship adrift about 400 miles east of the Azores. The crew of the Dei Gratia watched her carefully from a distance. The ship's sails were partly set, yet strangely tattered, flapping loosely in the wind. The vessel moved without direction, like a lifeless body floating on the waves. As the Dei Gratia drew closer, the name on the side became visible: Mary Celeste. Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Gratia knew Captain Briggs personally, and he immediately sensed that something was wrong. A ship like this should not be drifting aimlessly, especially not under Briggs' command. A small boarding party rowed across the choppy waters and climbed onto the Mary Celeste. What they found would haunt sailors forever. The ship was silent. No footsteps echoed on the deck, no voices called out orders, no signs of life stirred. The crew quarters were tidy, personal belongings left untouched. The captain's cabin was neat, with clothes folded, documents in place, and even the captain's sword sheathed in its scabbard. The galley contained food supplies for months, still perfectly edible. Some reports claimed that a meal had been left half-prepared, as though abandoned suddenly. The ship's cargo was mostly intact, though a few barrels of alcohol were found leaking. But the most chilling discovery was the emptiness. Every soul was gone. Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their young daughter Sophia, and all 7 sailors. The lifeboat was missing, suggesting they had abandoned ship. But why? The Mary Celeste was not sinking. She was perfectly seaworthy. The last logbook entry, dated 10 days earlier, described calm weather and normal sailing. There was no record of any danger, no storm, no attack. The chronometer, sextant, and some navigation instruments were missing, which suggested the crew may have tried to escape in the lifeboat. But why would they flee a safe, strong ship into the deadly uncertainty of the open ocean? The Dei Gratia crew carefully sailed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar. There, investigators studied the mystery in depth. They found no evidence of struggle, no blood, no signs of mutiny or piracy. Everything was calm, too calm, and that is what made it terrifying. News of the Mary Celeste spread like wildfire. Newspapers sensationalized the story, calling it a ghost ship, cursed, doomed by supernatural forces. Ordinary people were captivated. Was it a seaquake? Did alcohol fumes cause an explosion scare, forcing the crew to abandon ship? Did pirates attack, leaving the cargo untouched? Or had something far stranger occurred? In the 19th century, the line between science and superstition was thin. Sailors spoke of sea monsters, phantom ships, and spirits of the deep. The Mary Celeste became more than just an abandoned vessel. It became a legend, a floating riddle that seemed to mock human understanding. And so, the first chapter of this mystery was written. A ship set adrift in the Atlantic, perfectly intact, with food on the table, sails in the wind, and no one aboard. A family and crew vanished as though the ocean had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only silence and questions. The Mary Celeste was not just a story of the sea. It was a haunting reminder that the ocean keeps its secrets well, and sometimes it lets them drift back to us in the most unsettling way. The mystery of the Mary Celeste did not end when she was towed to Gibraltar. In many ways, that was only the beginning. The questions began immediately. Why had the captain and crew abandoned a ship that was still perfectly seaworthy? And why had they never been seen again? The Court of Inquiry in Gibraltar examined every possible detail. Experts studied the barrels of alcohol in the hold. Some were found leaking, and investigators speculated that fumes may have filled the lower decks. Industrial alcohol is highly flammable, and even the slightest spark could cause an explosion. Perhaps, the theory went, Captain Briggs feared that the ship might suddenly erupt into flames. He may have ordered everyone into the lifeboat temporarily, tying it to the ship with a rope, planning to return once the danger had passed. But what if the rope snapped in rough seas? What if the lifeboat drifted away, leaving the Mary Celeste sailing on without them? It was a reasonable explanation, yet something about it felt unsatisfying. Why was there no sign of panic in the logbook? Why were the cabins neat, as though everything had been carefully arranged before departure? And if Briggs was so experienced, would he really risk the lives of his family and crew by abandoning a strong ship for the uncertainties of a small lifeboat? Another theory whispered among sailors was mutiny. Perhaps the crew had turned against Briggs, killed him and his family, and then fled. But this idea soon collapsed. The crew's belongings were untouched, their wages unpaid, their supplies still on board. There was no blood, no violence, nothing to suggest a struggle. Then came the idea of pirates. The 19th century Atlantic was not free of raiders, and ships carrying valuable cargo were often targets. But why would pirates take the crew and leave the alcohol untouched? Why leave behind navigational charts and valuables? The ship was not looted. If pirates had struck, their work was strangely incomplete. Some even speculated about giant sea creatures, mythical beasts that rose from the depths to devour sailors. Tales of the kraken, massive squids, and monstrous whales were still alive in sailors' imaginations. Could something have dragged the people overboard in the dead of night? But if so, why was there no damage, no broken railings, no signs of a desperate struggle against the sea? The supernatural explanations soon took over. Sailors were already wary of the Mary Celeste's cursed beginnings. Many believed the ship was haunted, that something unseen walked her decks, claiming the lives of those who dared to sail her. Some said the crew had been seized by madness, driven insane by a force beyond human understanding, and leapt overboard willingly. Others whispered of ghostly lights dancing above the waves, or strange storms that swallowed people but left ships untouched. The newspapers only fueled these stories. Headlines declared it the greatest maritime mystery of the age. Ordinary people devoured every theory, from seaquakes to alien abductions. Yes, even in the 19th century, strange lights in the sky were linked to otherworldly forces. The Mary Celeste was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of fear. But what of Captain Briggs, his wife, and little Sophia? That perhaps was the most chilling part. A disciplined, religious man, a woman of faith, and an innocent child, all vanished without a trace. No bodies were ever found. No lifeboat washed ashore, no wreckage drifted to the surface. It was as if the Atlantic itself had swallowed them whole and kept its secret locked beneath the waves. Even more disturbing was what happened after the Mary Celeste was returned to service. The ship continued to sail for years, but sailors refused to join her crew. Those who did often spoke of uneasy nights, of hearing footsteps when no one was there, of shadows moving across the deck. Some refused to sleep alone in their quarters, claiming the sound of a child's laughter echoed in the wind. To many, the Mary Celeste was not just a ship, it was cursed, forever haunted by the spirits of those who vanished in 1872. Eventually, the Mary Celeste met her own tragic end. In 1885, her final captain deliberately ran her aground in Haiti in an attempt at insurance fraud. The plan failed, and the ship was destroyed, left to rot. Some say this was fitting, that a cursed ship could only end in betrayal and ruin, but the legend did not die with the wreck. If anything, it grew stronger. Writers like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle added their own chilling twists, turning the story into a tale of ghostly vengeance. Over the decades, the Mary Celeste became one of the most famous ghost ships in history, her name forever tied to the sea's greatest mysteries. And still, the questions remain. What happened in those final moments before the crew disappeared? Was it fear of an explosion, a freak storm, a mistake that spiraled into tragedy? Or something else, something darker, something the rational mind refuses to accept? The Atlantic Ocean has claimed countless lives, but the Mary Celeste is different. Most ships sink, their fates known. Most tragedies leave wreckage or survivors, but the Mary Celeste leaves only silence, a ship adrift, her people gone without a trace. That silence is what chills us the most. It is not just an absence of answers, it is a reminder of how fragile we are against the unknown. Even today, when sailors speak of ghost ships, their voices lower, their eyes glance at the horizon. Because on the sea, where the world feels endless and time itself seems to blur, the legend of the Mary Celeste still drifts. And who knows? Somewhere in the deep Atlantic, perhaps the spirits of Briggs, Sarah, little Sophia, and the crew still sail, forever bound to the cursed vessel that betrayed them. More than a century and a half has passed since the Mary Celeste was found drifting, but the mystery refuses to die. In fact, the more we learn about the ocean, the more the story twists between science and the supernatural. In the 20th century, researchers began to re-examine the case with new technology. Scientists studied the barrels of alcohol again, pointing out that when industrial alcohol leaks, it can create not only fumes, but also a sudden burst of vapor. If Briggs had lit a single match, or even if a lantern flickered, it could have caused a terrifying whoosh of flame, an explosion without leaving burn marks, powerful enough to terrify the captain into evacuating. Imagine standing on a ship where the air itself seems to ignite for a few seconds. In that moment of panic, the decision to lower the lifeboat may have seemed logical. But if the rope broke, the ocean would have quickly claimed them. Yet this explanation, though reasonable, still cannot account for every detail. Why were no distress signals fired? Why were navigational tools left on board? Why was the lifeboat never found? Even in an accident, traces should remain, but with the Mary Celeste, there was nothing. Modern researchers also considered natural phenomena. Could a sudden waterspout, a tornado-like column of water, have struck the ship? Waterspouts can be violent, sucking people from decks, yet leaving vessels strangely intact. If one appeared near the Mary Celeste, it might have lifted the crew into the sea, erasing them in minutes. But even this terrifying image leaves unanswered questions. Why was the logbook calm, ordinary, almost boring until the last entry? Others turn to geology. The mid-Atlantic ridge lies not far from the ship's path. Could an underwater earthquake have rocked the vessel so violently that Briggs thought it was sinking? And imagined danger, a misjudgment in the chaos, could have forced the evacuation. And yet, once again, the ocean keeps its secret. Beyond science, the paranormal stories only grew stronger. In the late 1900s, sailors crossing the Atlantic claimed to see a phantom ship, white sails glowing in the moonlight, drifting silently. Some swore it was the Mary Celeste, forever repeating her ghostly voyage. Ships that tried to approach found nothing but empty seas, as if the vision dissolved into mist. Even more disturbing are the modern paranormal investigations. Psychics who have visited artifacts connected to the Mary Celeste describe overwhelming feelings of fear, of a sudden need to escape, of voices crying out for help. One even claimed to hear a child's voice whispering, "Mama, where are we?" Could it be the echo of little Sophia Briggs, trapped between worlds? For historians, the Mary Celeste represents unsolved history. For sailors, she remains a warning that the ocean hides dangers we cannot predict. But for believers in the supernatural, she is proof that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Think about it. The ship has been studied by scientists, sailors, historians, even novelists, yet no single explanation satisfies. If it was fumes, where is the lifeboat? If it was pirates, where is the evidence of theft? If it was mutiny, where is the proof of struggle? Every theory collapses under its own weight, and perhaps that is why the legend endures. The Mary Celeste is more than a story of disappearance. It is a reminder of how small we are in the face of the unknown. The sea is vast, merciless, and eternal. It can hide truths forever beneath its dark surface. Today, when ships pass near the coordinates where the Mary Celeste was discovered, some captains still avoid speaking her name. Fishermen tell stories of strange lights that hover just above the waves. And at night, under a full moon, there are those who claim to hear faint cries carried by the wind, voices calling out across time, voices that were silenced in 1872 but never at peace. Maybe the Mary Celeste was simply the victim of an accident. Maybe Captain Briggs made a terrible decision at the wrong moment. Or maybe, just maybe, the ship carried with it a curse, one that claimed not only her crew but also her future, dragging her into history as a ghost ship. And so the Mary Celeste remains adrift in our imagination. Not just a vessel of wood and sail, but a phantom of mystery, a reminder that even in an age of satellites and science, the ocean still holds secrets that defy explanation. Secrets that whisper to us in the dead of night when the horizon is endless and the sea seems to be watching. The story ends here, but the legend of the Mary Celeste does not. For as long as the sea is untamed, as long as ships set sail into the unknown, the ghost of the Mary Celeste will haunt the waters, forever sailing, forever unanswered.